Hi everyone, my name is Ava and I'm an American living in the Netherlands, and today I wanted to talk to you about all of the glorious happenings in America from my relatively safe position here in the Netherlands, but more on that later. If you've been following my channel for a while and been wondering, hey Ava, where have you been lately? I've been seeing fewer and fewer videos on your channel. Well, the answer is I've been hiding from all of the current events. More specifically, I've taken to hiding under the sheets in my bed, where I think about important questions of the world like, why is it de wetenschap but het landschap, when they both end with the suffix schap? Turns out there are two types of schappen in Dutch. You see, I wouldn't have landed on this very important fact had I not been hiding under my covers, so that is time well spent. And I would have continued to remain under said covers if my wife didn't come up to me and say, hey babe, did you hear that Jimmy Kimmel got canceled? And that led me spiraling and led me to make this video today. Because if you haven't heard, in the US, Jimmy Kimmel's late night show, which is very popular, was canceled. It is the second late night show that has been canceled, the first one being that of Stephen Colbert's. If you've heard about this happening, you probably know that that is because both of these talk show hosts are anti-Trump. And Trump doesn't like anyone going against his own opinions or making fun of him. That is very, very bad. Apparently so bad that these shows that are institutions in the US have been canceled. Now, this is a big freaking deal. It was even picked up in the Netherlands by Arjen Lubach, who has a very popular show, which, by the way, I have boycotted ever since he made the move from NPO to RTL. Let me tell you why. Let's go into this little segue about Arjen Lubach, because I feel like if you're gonna go on TV to the world and talk about how other people don't have integrity, you need to first look at your own very glass house. Because how could someone with this much influence and power make a move from public media to commercial TV when public media is undergoing so many budget cuts and such scrutiny from the current government? Like, it absolutely blows my mind. Now, here's the thing. If an average person, or above average, whatever, most people making a financial decision like this, where they go commercial or take steps so that they can earn more, that makes sense to me. However, this is no average Joe. We are talking about someone who has been named to have one of the most influences on The Hague, which is where the Dutch politics and government is. He has got great power, and with great power comes responsibility, which he didn't seem to realize. The only reason I know that he picked up this news item is because it showed up my YouTube recommendations, because I have watched every single episode of his before he was at RTL. Like, I was a big fan. Emphasis on was, because here's the thing. He will go on interviews saying, I made this move because I did what I thought was best for the show. Achoo! Excuse me, I think I am allergic to bee-suckle. In some interviews, he's apparently go on to say like, oh, but I'm just like everybody else. Like, of course the money was a factor. It's like, guy, you are not like everybody else. Come on. You can say that the salaries in public media are capped, but at the same time, you are a total brand on your own. You write books, you do shows. I'm pretty sure, I have this little inkling, I don't know what this assumption could possibly be based off of, that you are doing fine financially. So save it. And there's some people around me who are like, oh, but he seems so down to earth. Like, he himself makes fun of the fact that he earns so much more now. It's like, really? Let me tell you, from one person who uses humor as a defense mechanism to another, I see what he's doing. You tell the joke before someone else can use it against you. Now, with that said, let us get back to the main point of this video. So I want to talk about how I view the US, what is happening there now, how I feel about it as an American whose perspective is a bit removed. So I do feel like I'm looking at it from far away, that I'm not really experiencing the day-to-day of it. But at the same time, I'm still American. Like, I still love the USA, even though I now live in the Netherlands and I have another home. So that hasn't changed. And at the same time, I do think it's interesting to share how I view the US as someone who has now adopted Dutch values and has experience living in Dutch society. So I think that's interesting to mention. And the other thing I want to mention is, do I feel safe living here in the Netherlands when I watch all of this happening in the US? Like, is it that far removed? I'm already going to spoil the answer to that and say no, and I will tell you why at the end of the video. So watch to find out. So first, pretty quick recap of what is going on in the US. So in the US, just like Arjen Lubach's show, they are late night talk shows that cover news items, that talk about daily happenings in a light and humorous way. Like, for people who don't want to watch the heavy, serious news every single day. Like me, but my wife disagrees. My wife at 8 p.m. every day, when there's the Journal, she'll come to me and be like, babe, it's time for us to watch the news. And I'll be like, no, babe, not again, please. Like, no, babe, we need to be informed citizens. Let's watch the news. And I give in to her because who could argue with that? So every day I watch the news and I feel a little more depressed. And when I feel depressed, I tend to drink coffee. And when I drink coffee, I tend to get hyper, which makes me only want more coffee. And then I'm really hyper. And then I decide to go for a walk to walk off some of the hyperness. But then I walk on the beautiful streets of the Netherlands and then I run into a cafe. And then I want to go into the cafe. And in the cafe, I have to have coffee because what else am I doing in the cafe otherwise? So then I have some coffee and then I get even more hyped up. And then none of this stops. And my wife will be like, hey, hun, don't you want some tea to calm yourself down? And I'm like, I do not need to be calm right now. I am plenty calm. At about 9 p.m., I'll give him and drink some sleepy time tea so that I can actually go to bed and then wake up and do the whole thing all over again. So anyway, people in America, just like very many places in the world, watch the late night show for their news. This is where they get their information. Stephen Colbert is someone who is vocally anti-Trump and left-leaning, and his show was canceled one day. That was concerning in and of itself. However, a short while later, Jimmy Kimmel's show got canceled. There was a clear reason for why that happened. It was because he made a comment on the recent incident with Charlie Kirk. And that was a trigger to have him suspended. Now, these are two left-leaning shows canceled in a short amount of time. And the next thing you know, Trump tweets Jimmy Fallon, so the other Jimmy, and Seth Meyers, you are next. Because these two are also anti-Trump. So together, these four have really popular late night shows and half of them are canceled, which is unbelievable. This is not normal. We are not living in normal times. We need to be worried. I'm so glad Trump hasn't come after John Oliver yet because that is where I get some of my information. But I have a sneaking suspicion that that's because he doesn't like quite understand his accent and get what he's saying. So I have a feeling we're going to be good for a while. Now, the reason this is concerning, of course, is because it attacks America's First Amendment, which is freedom of speech, which baffles me because honestly, I have a feeling that right-wing people are the first one to take to the streets and ramp on about their freedom of speech. And of course, I know I'm generalizing across half a population right now, which I absolutely should not be doing. But let us say that some extreme right-wing individuals really go out there and say, I am allowed to express my opinion. So here's all this hate that I have inside of me that I'm going to now convert into words because that is my First Amendment right. So absolutely baffling when these same people now are for censorship. And I think that is because their own opinion is not reflected in these places. And also because we have a large orange child as president in the United States of America. So it just feels like this isn't going to stop anytime soon and only get worse. Now, I have a feeling that in the Netherlands, people look at everything happening in America and go, wow, that is so interesting. America is such a wild place. I always thought they were a bit weird over there, and now, whew, this just proves my point. But I feel like Dutch people, America and what's going on there, like, it's not a soap opera. You're not watching Goeie Tijden, Slechte Tijden, you know? This is like real life. So the question we need to be asking is, are we safe here in the Netherlands? And I want to say no. And here's the reason for it. I feel like we can be very grateful about how things are in the Netherlands, but I watch the news and I hear politicians like Geert Wilders say, I am not a fan of compromisbeleid, which means I'm not a fan of making compromises on policy. I'm going to talk a little bit about the difference between the American political system and the Dutch one to explain this a bit, but basically he's not a fan of incorporating other opinions, working with other parties to come up with a policy because he claims you can get a lot done then. Oh, he wants to get a lot done. Like when he says stuff like this, I have alarm bells going off louder than the fireworks here in the Netherlands on New Year's Eve. Now let me tell you, they are loud. That is why I leave around that time of year. But when Geert Wilders says something like that, what I hear is he wants to be doing exactly what his friends in America, Trump and Hungary, Orban, are doing and other places with dictatorships. He wants to make a lot of changes that benefit him. And if you think, no, that's not the case, he really cares about the people, it's like, think about it. Really? Does he? Does Trump really care about the people? Or does he just make it sound like he does? So I think we should be asking ourselves the hard question. There is one difference that makes America a bit more susceptible to polarization than the Netherlands, which is that in the US, you have the two political party system. It's really hard for another third party to gain power or momentum. Here in the Netherlands, you have a bunch of parties. People still talk about them as left and right-wing parties. I did this for left, didn't I? I mean, it probably looks right to you, but this is my right hand. Left. Clearly not getting enough sleep. Anyway, people still talk about them as left and right wing parties, but they're also moderate parties, and you can have your views somewhere on the spectrum. And when election time comes around, like these parties get different numbers of votes and they form a coalition together so that they have a variety of opinions represented. And then if they have to make a policy and they have to make changes, they kind of have to have everyone be in agreement. So in that sense, it's really difficult to have just like one person signing decrees and being like, okay, here's what I want to do. Here's me in a basketball stadium signing stuff off. Like that is a bit more difficult here in the Netherlands. But let us not forget again that America is a very real place. And honestly, when it comes to democracy, things were good in America. There is a reason France gave America the Statue of Liberty as a present. It wasn't like the French one evening back in the day, drank too much wine and were like, mon chéri, why don't I give you a present, a very nice one, I think a beautiful lady that you could put in the sea, and we also send you a boat full of croissants. No, obviously none of that. But at the same time, there was a reason why the Statue of Liberty was given to the US, because the US was emblematic of democracy back in the day. And now it is becoming a manual of what not to do if you want your really nice country to turn into a dictatorship. Because it would be really unfair to say that nothing good has come out of America. That is far from the truth. I know I have my qualms with things in the US, but that's because you can criticize something that you love. Because I feel like I'm part of this, a part of this story, and I want to help shape it. Now, speaking of places I love the Netherlands, and the elections in the Netherlands are coming up. And I am really interested to see how people vote here. Because here's the thing, people here are frustrated as well. The increase in prices, lack of housing has people frustrated, and they're looking to point fingers. I understand. That is emotion, and humans have emotions. I know I personally wish I had less of them and wish I was, in fact, part robot, but a girl can only dream. But we have emotions, and we are not as receptive to statistics. And I have a feeling that a lot of left-wing people are like, look at these numbers, look at them, and let me tell you these numbers in a really boring factual way so that I hope you understand them. That doesn't work. For instance, you might have heard that by 2050, there's going to be more plastic in the ocean than fish. Whoa, that is terrible. You definitely have some feelings about this statement. However, I show you a picture of a seahorse with a Q-tip wrapped around its tail, and you're gonna start tearing up because look at that adorable little seahorse. That poor little seahorse is just dragging along this Q-tip. It just wants to be with its other seahorse friends, and mommy seahorse and daddy seahorse, and instead, here it has this Q-tip, and it's probably looking for food, but instead all it has is this Q-tip, this trash. So that really evokes emotion. There's been a lot of research showing that humans are more receptive and will show more emotion to stories rather than numbers because we care about people. That's beautiful, except for the fact that none of the left-wing people who are in politics seem to understand this. So they kind of just hope that people will reason and do the right thing, whatever this means. Whereas you have some really smart people on the right who are like, no, I'm going to charge the emotion people are feeling. But what I find is unfortunate is that they're doing this without the facts, and anything you say needs to be based in facts. So what I hope is that we are not going to make the mistakes that happened in the US when elections come around pretty soon. And I hope if you're watching this, that this helps influence your decision a little bit. I'm just saying it's something we need to be aware of, because if this is happening in America right now, next thing you know, it could be happening here in the Netherlands. Anyway, that was all for today. I promise I will be back with a more lighter, happier video because I think we could all use one.